Hi guys, Rich from TrackSpark here. Hope you're all well. Had a nice summer, and welcome to another little tutorial. So let's get on with it straight away. I've called this one. It only takes that one thing, and what I mean by that is, I think every track I compose, and I think any track that you'll listen to should have that one thing that that either that either sort of everything in the track sort of centers around, whether it's a weird sort of noise or a vocal sample or a weird sort of percussive loop that you've got. It might even be a crazy snare sound that you're using, but it's that one thing that either takes the track from being a bunch of sort of notes and drum samples or whatever and then into an actual track. So it's either that or it takes your track that's going nowhere and it completely gives it a spark of inspiration that then creates this track almost by itself. And yeah, like I say, for me, I try and do it in every track that I compose, and it's usually a sample or a loop that I've got, whether it's in a rock track, even it might be the best rock riff you've ever written, but whether it's in a rock track or a dance track, then I'll always usually find some sort of sample that'll totally bring the track together or spark it off in a new direction, and then it will create, an awesome track. So what I wanted to do was just quickly show you this track that I'm doing at the moment, and then show you the loop and the sample that I got that really inspired this track and took it in a new direction. And then I'll just show you a couple of other things that I believe in my tracks that are the one thing that made it what it was. And then, there you go, sort of thing. Oh, now we've got a tune. And like I said, for me, it's usually a sample or a loop that I've got from somewhere. So anyway, because before I show you, I'm saying this because the amount of times I've sat here with a track or with a composition, and I'm racking my brains and I'm changing chord progressions, and changing instruments, bass lines, and nothing's happening until I sort of take a step back and search through my libraries and find that one thing. I'm just throwing things in there to see if anything sticks, and there it comes, and there it is, and off we go. And we're like, well, without that, it's not a track, or without that, it wouldn't have been a track. So so anyway, let's get on with it. I'll play this tune and then show you where it went from and how it inspired the tune. Okay, cool. So there we go. It's sort of like a nice, sort of cool, lively, upbeat, sort of hip hop tune. It's the chorus bit in a hip hop tune. It's not finished yet. It's not mixed. The beats are going to be sort of more crunchy and old school, and this is just sort of first draft. But the tune itself, I guess, is sort of there or thereabouts. So how did I start it? So I started with basically a drum loop. So let's just take these drums. I didn't have that sort of live loop that I chopped up. Let's take that out. I didn't have that. I didn't have that. So I think I started with pretty much this. So pretty sort of not the best sounding at that point either. Pretty basic sort of drum loop there. And I was playing around with sort of, bass lines. Always try and sort of create a bass line or a chord progression first, just to give, whatever I'm going to put into it a layer or a bass layer to sit over. So, and nothing was really coming. So this was a little while. I wouldn't say I was quite lucky. I stumbled across this sort of sample quite early on, but you know, I was a little stuck, shall we say, at that point, but not horrendously. So I managed to find this sample. I've called it Bell's Loop. And it's just like a sort of a belly sort of keyboard sort of sound. And I thought it sounded quite cool. And I quite like the sort of the chord progression in it. So then obviously started playing around with a bass line to go over the top of it, just a sub line. Stuck an extra chord in there just to give it a bit more movement. Still quite chilled at this point. So I guess I was still in the let's search for the thing, but I was quite happy with that at that point where it was going. And then I sort of stuck this loop in here. So I really like the rhythm of that, that sort of triplet that starts on the offbeat, that sort of syncopated rhythm. It gives it a nice feel. And like I said, I think this example is more a thing where it's not the thing in the track that everything gravitates around. This was the spark of inspiration for me, and it made it sort of what it is. So from that point, it sort of inspired that. I knew that sort of syncopated rhythm was obviously going to be a central point to it. So it sort of sparked this little line, sort of like keyboard synth sound. And we're getting somewhere now. So then inspired. Obviously, stylistically, I sort of knew where I sort of wanted to go. So the next progression was horns. Which will be real by the end of it. I'm going to get some real horns in there. And then, you know, layer up the guitars to go with it. And then at this point, I don't even want this bells sound, so I'm losing it. I just put it in there just to show you where it came from. I've replaced it with the piano, organ. So the track's pretty much sort of written itself here. I've got a bass guitar that's doubling it up. So here we go. Sticking some drums to make it a bit sort of bigger. So we can sort of see where it's come from and then how each element has inspired the rest. And it's, you know, there's a lot sort of going on in there, but it's all working together as one. So let's just quickly hear the track again. The vocals sort of came last. They might sort of be the main sort of focal point now, because obviously in this they are. But I think once you've got a bass like that, a bass sort of backing track or track at that sort of thing, anything you put over it is going to sound pretty cool anyway. So for me, it was this original sort of bells sample. It gave me the vibe, and then this little sort of vocally weird little vocally loop. that then inspired the rhythm, and it was those sort of two eureka moments almost that created the track, and they were my one thing. Although it was two things, they were my one thing. So yeah, and let's just have a quick listen to a couple of these other tracks, just to sort of see like that was my one thing. So okay, so let's just hear this one. So that for me, that one, I remember that one. It was the vocal, that moving all night. So just that little vocal weird sample. Otherwise, otherwise it was just beats and a chord, beats and a bass line basically. For that one, originally there was a lot more going on sort of in the vocals thing. It's been stripped back a bit actually, but that was my one thing that I'd taken the track so far and then added those vocals, and now it's a track. So let's see what this one is. So here we go. Let's just start a little bit further back. So this one for me was that sort of low cello sound. It was lacking something at that point. The track was not too bad, but it was the low sort of cello. See if we can hear it from the beginning. That then just made it, and then also this sort of weird clock ticking sound. So aesthetically, it was like without those two things, before the vocals even entered, without those two things, aesthetically, it was just a backing track. So they were my one thing. I've done another two thinger there, haven't I? I've just destroyed my own tutorial. But again, it doesn't have to be two things. Usually, it just needs that one thing. So what's this one? I think we've got another. This one's a vocal again. This was this intro vocal for me. So without that intro vocal, and then when it kicks in, again, just a collection for me anyway, a collection of hits and a chord progression. And then the vocal went in there, and it's like, eureka, now we've got a tune on our hands. So, like I say, I think every track sort of needs it or has it. Even a Hans Zimmer tune, if you're listening to a Hans Zimmer track, you think, oh, it's just another Hans Zimmer tune. It just sounds like another movie track or, an epic movie trailer. If you listen to it again, you'll see that there's something in there that is weird and different and makes it sort of stand out, other than obviously the amazing melodies that it creates. But I think aesthetically, it doesn't even have to be tuneful. It can be a weird sound, but you find that one thing, and then your composition or your tune suddenly becomes a track. So yeah, make sure you guys search for it. And yeah, I hope that was a decent bit of advice, and I'll see you next month. Cheers, guys.